Hi, my name is Godwin, and I am a trained psychologist working in the addictions field for close to a decade now. I have seen firsthand how addiction can become destructive to both the individual who is suffering from addiction and from those who are closest to them. The reason why I'm doing a video is because I believe this is an effective way to get it out there to such people and to their loved ones that there is help. So, what's addiction? In its very simplest terms, addiction is the unhealthy pursuit of alcohol or drugs or other habit forming behaviors like gambling and sex and pornography. So, the unhealthy pursuit of these things, despite of their negative consequences, and sometimes despite of the desire to stop using or to stop pursuing them. So, you'd find a guy drinking and pursuing alcohol in an unhealthy way, for example, getting into debts to drink, stealing to drink, destroying their own health to drink. So they're pursuing alcohol in an unhealthy way, and they can't seem to stop, even though it's having negative consequences on them, on their health, on their job, on their spouses, on their families. They can't seem to stop despite of those negative consequences, and sometimes even despite of their own desire to stop using. I've seen people swear off alcohol, say, I'll never drink again. I've seen people promise themselves to never drink again, only to beat themselves up in the evening or in the next morning, asking themselves, how did I drink again? So how does a person get, I'll be focusing more on alcohol and drug abuse because this is where I've been working for close to a decade now. But I believe these principles I'll be talking about in these videos would be applicable to other forms of addiction because in many ways they are similar. But I'll be focusing on alcoholism and drug addiction. So how does somebody get from being a social drinker, from being a casual drinker to becoming an alcoholic? It's a journey, it's a progressive journey, and nobody ever seems to think that the next addict could be them. So this video would serve as a wake-up call to somebody who hasn't yet gotten there. It would help to put things into perspective for you to decide whether or not you want to keep on pursuing that journey or to pick a different route altogether for yourself. It will also serve to help those who are already in the vice grip of addiction to have tools on how to get out and to have an avenue where you can reach out for help. This is the point where I can say that you can drop a comment down below or reach out via direct message to get help for yourself or for your loved one. So how does someone get from becoming a casual drinker to becoming a full-blown addict? And like I said, nobody ever thinks that the next addict could be them. But this is usually how it starts. It starts by experimentation. You may have seen an advert somewhere, people drinking. You may have seen friends drinking, and out of curiosity, out of wanting to taste it for yourself, you may have gone experimenting with drugs or alcohol, like many have before. And that's what we call the experimentation stage. It's the very, very first stage in the progressive stages of becoming an addict. And there are usually 5 stages, and they move in a linear fashion, which means it's not a circular fashion. You can only experiment once. Once you go to the next stage, you can't say, now I'm experimenting a second time. It's only you experiment once, and then you move to the next stage. So it's linear, and it can only be experienced once. So you see how fast a man can move or a woman can move through the stages to becoming an addict. The next stage is a social stage of addiction. I'm saying of addiction because the end product is always, addiction. So the second stage is usually social drinking, and this is where many people fancy themselves as being. Many people consider themselves being social drinkers, social users, when in the real sense they may have already gone way ahead into the progressive stages of addiction, as we will see. The social stage is where people use drugs, for social purposes, to mingle during a game night, during graduation or birthdays, and all sorts of social, events and gatherings. The next stage is the instrumental stage. As the name suggests, in this stage, people have begun to use alcohol or drugs as a tool of sorts. They may use alcohol to calm their nerves. They may use, for example, marijuana to calm their social anxiety. They may use miraa to, stimulate themselves to work or to do something. So they've begun to use the drugs and the alcohol as an instrument. And this is where it begins to become problematic, because people start to replace healthy coping mechanisms with alcohol and with drugs. So while you would solve conflicts in a much more constructive way, for example, somebody would turn to alcohol to solve conflicts. For example, they get into an argument with their spouse and they go drinking, saying, I just want to blow off steam. If you had a wife like mine, you would drink also. So instead of creating healthy coping mechanisms, people start to use alcohol or to use drugs as a coping mechanism. Again, I'm focusing on alcohol and drug addiction, but these can be replaced with any other number of forms of addiction. So this is the instrumental stage. And as you can imagine, as you keep, how many times will you, for example, how many times will a man be stressed during the day? How many times will you get into conflict with people at work or with people at home? How many times will you be bored? How many times will you get into things like disappointment, loss, and grief? Quite a number of times. So if you don't develop a healthy coping mechanism, if a man doesn't develop a healthy coping mechanism and they are using alcohol as a way to cope with daily life issues, then they will also increase the number of times they use. And naturally, as the number of times increase, tolerance is being built up. And so they up their quantities. And as they up their quantities, their body is getting used to those substances. So they become physically dependent. They get closer to being physically dependent on the drug of choice, so to speak. And so it's problematic. I usually call it the problematic stage of addiction. The next stage is usually the habitual stage, and this is where people are far gone. This is the fourth stage, not so. So yes, the fourth stage, and it's one stage down to addiction. And this is where I want to stop this video today, because I'd like to focus on the two other stages on a completely different video altogether. So please like, share this video. This is just a start. Again, the reason why I'm doing this is to get it out there to people that there is help should they want to seek it for themselves. Thank you so much for watching. We intend to post these videos as often as we can, probably weekly. Please share, like, and reach out if you want to seek help for yourself or for your loved one. Please have a good one.